Hello everyone! Today, before we begin this review, I have to put in a little disclaimer in the interests of fairness and transparency. I need to tell you all that I received a free key from the fine folks at One More Dream Studios and Team 17 to make a video about this game. Yes, that's right, I'm finally receiving keys from game developers to make videos about their games. I'm finally a proper gaming YouTuber. I didn't even want to tell you anything about fairness anyway, I just wanted to flex on people. That's not nice. Sorry about that. But what are we talking about today? Well, in case the title of the video didn't clue you in yet, today we are going to talk about a platformer that tests your skills in both dexterity and brain power. It's a little indie game that deserves more love and goes by the name of Ageless. Recently released by One More Dream Studios on Steam, Ageless is a puzzle platformer in which you play as a woman named Kiara, feeling lost and adrift in life like most of us are really. Kiara decides to spend years of her life searching the ruins of the mysterious wasteland of Pandora in search of a legendary structure with supernatural properties called the Gate. Said structure being said to give... Did I just say it twice? The structure gives superpowers, called gifts, to those who find it. And she personally believes getting a gift will finally give her a direction in life. Well, it isn't even 10 minutes into the game before she finds the gate and gets a gift. The ability to speed up or reverse the aging of any living creature. And then off she goes to see if she can find a way to help other people with said ability. Like the title of the game might indicate, its main gimmick is that each screen contains its own separate little puzzle, as well as a host of living creatures you must age or de-age in order to solve it so you can reach the next screen. Now, the thing when it comes to puzzle platformers is that unlike their more dexterity-based breathing, they prefer to be slower, less focused on jumping skill and more focused on testing your logic skills. Some of them might not even include jumping, and usually when timing is required, the timing window for the actions you have to pull is wide, so as to not end up filtering those with slower motor coordination abilities. Not here. No sir. Ageless will ask you to spend all of your brain power planning some crazy stunt, and then ask you to execute it with a ridiculously small timing window, which is why I think some people compared it to Celeste. But I feel like a much more apt comparison is to another one of the best puzzle platformers I've played in my entire life. No exaggeration. Okay, maybe a little bit of exaggeration. But anyway, I'd like you to compare it instead to Giga Wrecker. Giga Wrecker was a physics-based platformer developed by Game Freak. Yes, that Game Freak, the creators of Pokemon. And which was released in Steam Early Access so they could iron out the kinks of it. It mix and matched combat and puzzling by giving you skills that could be used for both of them depending on how and where you use them, which reminds me greatly of how the gimmick of aging and de-aging works in Ageless, because you see, while you can age and de-age plants, the vast majority of things you use your power on are animals. Usually animals, not always like animals, they might be some sort of different kind of creature, but all of them which have at least one period of life in which they will be able to use attacks to kill you. Not to mention that, like animals do, they will usually move around the screen rather than just perfectly stay still like puzzle pieces, waiting for the player to know how to put them in place. And while looking from the angle of having a gimmick that is used for both puzzle solving as well as in other ways is similar to Giga Wrecker, looking from another angle, Ageless is actually very unlike Giga Wrecker in other ways, or really any other puzzle platformer that I've personally played really, because it blurs the line between puzzle piece and obstacle on every single screen. While in Giga Wrecker or in many other games, you could look at an enemy and see it and be like, oh, this is an enemy, or look at a device and see it and say, oh, this is a puzzle piece. In other words, it is immediately obvious if you are supposed to use an enemy's property in a unique way when you enter the designated puzzle zone. Every time I began a new puzzle in this game, I rarely knew what part each element would play into solving the current puzzle, or if it even had a part to play at all. Some creatures can be completely ignored, and some puzzles have multiple solutions, so it's never really clear until you spend some time thinking about it if that bush shooting spikes at you is just there as an enemy for you to avoid, or if they are actually an integral part of solving the puzzle. Further complementing that is the fact that this game is divided into different areas, each area with its own unique fauna and flora among other elements, all of which interact with each other in different ways, and which are never shared between areas, so you always have to rethink your traversal strategies as you go along. And because you never stay in one area for too long, it's hard to get bored, as you always are only just a few moments away from getting some new toys to play with. This all culminates in the final area of the game, which I won't spoil, because I don't like spoiling things like that, but you should just note that the developers really had complete understanding over their creation and that they managed to get it to reach its full potential. And that's just beautiful to witness, since so few puzzlers get to combine their different mechanics in such a bombastic way. And speaking of culmination, each individual area also have their own boss encounter at the end, all of which are unique and make use of all of the elements you've mastered while playing through their respective areas while adding their own unique twist, including the tree boss, whose attacks create walls that you can jump off from, thus changing the arena and the way you interact with its obstacles in real time, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's honestly, allow me to go off script here to say that I totally got super interested in the game, and I went to see if I could get a key for it after I saw another YouTuber going through the tree boss, because the tree boss is just amazing. It's one of my favorite boss battles of like 2020, or really a long time. That boss is great. That boss is just great. But what are we talking about again? Oh yeah, I forgot that you get to play with another ability where you become Ageless, which stops time, and then when you touch a living creature, you can use it to boost yourself in a direction while throwing it to the opposite direction and de-aging it one stage. And I forgot to mention that. That's a pretty cool mechanic, so I'm awkwardly mentioning it here now. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on! Of course, each area is not only unique in mechanics, it is also unique in look, and surprisingly enough, each area carries its own little bit of deep lore. Yes, that's right, the world of Ageless is fully realized. Each area has its own little bits of lore explaining what happened there. You get to go from wastelands through lush forests with the most oriental looking village, and then go to the inside of a giant mechanical titan who also has a fully populated village inside of it, and you'll be able to talk with a lot of people both inside and outside of the villages as you go through the story. And the story plays a much bigger part than it first appears. And while I must confess it is in a Shakespearean masterpiece, it did convey its themes of power and the search for purpose driven by it, or the lack of it, quite well. And it did hit all of the emotional high notes it tried to. So I'm happy to say, I personally think it accomplished what it set out to do, story-wise. So from all of that, this would have to be a certified recommendation for the game, right? Well, sort of. Like everything in life, this game comes with a catch. And let me tell you this, I'm a super casual. I don't have a hardcore gamer card to prove everyone that like I only play on super hard and easy mode is for cowards and stuff. And I also don't go out of my way to try games out just because they're challenging. So if you're hardcore, or if you're looking for a challenge, or depending, just take the following with a spoonful of salt. But Ageless can get hardcore. And the worst part of it is that unfortunately it gets hardcore inconsistently. It's not uncommon for you to breeze through levels before suddenly coming to a halt in one that suddenly requires pixel perfect platforming and or god tier timing to get through, and those can take quite a while and cause quite some frustration on account that they suddenly stop the pacing of the game, they just bring it to a screeching halt. But even weirder is that they are not part of a natural difficulty curve. They are just very sharp and very nasty difficulty spikes, and as soon as you overcome them, the next batch of levels are also much more aligned with what came before them, so you once again slide like butter until you hit another brick wall over and over again. To the point I can't really say the difficulty of the game is hard, so much as inconsistent. There are also the boss levels, which, unlike the previous levels that checkpointed you on every screen, require you to go through an absurd amount of screens before you reach any checkpoints. But given that boss encounters usually are supposed to be harder than anything that came before them or after, they're meant to be like high points of testing your skills, this might actually be an example of good game design. What makes all of this so fascinating to me personally though, is that Ageless might actually be useful and as an example of why so many puzzle platformers avoid putting such tight timing challenges into their game design. Because in other puzzle platformers, it's not uncommon for you to try to do something obvious or to figure out something you believe to be the solution, only to fail close to the goal and realize that this is not the way the developers intended for you to solve this puzzle, and that there must be an easier way for you to reach the goal, if you use your brain a little harder. Such thinking here is completely useless, because sometimes the solution you thought of that you discarded because the timing necessary to do it seemed too ridiculously tight might in fact be the intended one, and you have no choice but to keep trying to nail it over a dozen times, or dozens of times actually, while somehow sparing enough brain power to think if this particular puzzle does not in fact have an easier solution, because to make matters even more complicated, sometimes they do. This is an interesting problem in the realm of puzzle design that is exemplified but unfortunately not solved by Ageless. Not helping matters is that unlike other recent similarly hard games like Celeste, Ageless doesn't have any difficulty options or modifiers to make the game easier or harder. What you see here is what you get, whether you like it or not. Which is a shame because there definitely exists some rooms within the mechanics to make the games easier for puzzle lovers with less dexterity. But maybe the developers didn't want to ruin their vision for a mix of brains and reflexes that they wanted this game to require from the player. Well, one thing I can definitely recommend is that you play this game with a controller, because while the aiming makes a lot of sense using the mouse because you can aim quickly at any part of the screen, when you use a controller, in order to accommodate for the timing required for you to complete the puzzles, whenever you aim your bow using a controller instead of the mouse, whenever you press a button to aim, the game slows down. And I gotta be honest with you, I abused the hell out of that. Of course, it's still not ideal because you still have to fire the arrow, and there is a little bit of animation that plays when you fire it, which can result in you getting killed, so it's not like, you know, a perfect solution, but it is something. And while even my casual ass managed to reach the ending, I still felt like it was my duty to put this giant casuals beware sign on this review, so everyone knows what they're getting into, since I sure as hell didn't. Other than that, I saw some Steam reviews saying that the game is too short, but honestly, I'm dumb, and it took me about 9 hours to finish it without even touching the optional super hard levels, which, by the way, are a thing that exists in case you want to be challenged even more. And while it's true for the first time ever that I didn't pay for the game that I'm reviewing, the price is honestly a steal considering how much diversity in content they managed to pack into this. When I said every single area required a completely different way of thinking to get through, might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but also there is truth in what I said. The mechanic of aging and the aging doesn't change, but so much change, and there are so many cool mechanics that they introduced, that in the end, I'm happy to say that I can recommend Ageless, and that it would be a shame if this one got unnoticed, because it is a very good, very polished, very packed game. And that, you know, I don't think it should be lost to the ages. Get it? Ages? Because the game's named Ageless. You know, you get what I did there. You get what I did there. I'm sorry, okay?